Exploring abandoned buildings has always had a certain thrill for some people. There's a sense of adventure, a curiosity about what might be left behind. Whether it's old furniture, forgotten belongings, or even just the echoes of lives once lived there. However, not all explorations end with just a few cool photos or stories to tell. Sometimes you stumble upon something truly unsettling, like what happened with 3 high school boys who decided to explore the old Akashi Library. Instead of finding hidden treasures or stunning views, they discovered something far more chilling, a mysterious mummy. This is the eerie story of what happened in the Akashi Library in Japan on September 26, 2021. The story starts with 3 high school friends from Akashi City, Hyogo Prefecture, Japan, who decided to spend the day exploring ruins, a hobby known as haikyo in Japan. It's a popular activity where people visit abandoned buildings, take photos, and sometimes even blog or make vlogs about their adventures. For some, it's just about the thrill of being somewhere forgotten and eerie, especially when done at night in a challenge known as kimodameshi, or a courage test. This seemed like harmless fun to the boys, especially with the possibility of gaining some attention online if they found something interesting. So, like many teenagers before them, they were eager to dive into this adventure. After some discussion, they decided on the old Akashi City Library, which had been abandoned since 2017. The library, built in 1974 in the Akashi Park area, was once a well-known spot, housing nearly 500,000 books and employing over 70 people. However, its inconvenient location, far from train stations and schools, led the local government to relocate it to a more modern, strategically placed building in the city center. By 2017, after 43 years of service, the library closed its doors, and the building was left behind, unused and neglected. Even though the library was still in decent condition, it was marked off-limits with ropes and signs set up by March 2020 to keep trespassers out. But to these 3 boys, the warnings only added to the excitement. The idea of sneaking into a place they weren't supposed to be only made the adventure more appealing. They didn't plan to spend much time there, thinking it would be a quick and harmless exploration. Unlike more serious ruins explorers, they didn't bother with much preparation. No food, no special tools, just a few flashlights, just in case they stayed past dark. Confident and eager, they set off on what they thought would be just another ordinary day of exploring. Little did they know, this adventure would be anything but ordinary. So on the evening of September 26, 2021, around 5 p.m., the 3 high school boys made their way into the abandoned Akashi Library. Their initial plan was simple: climb to the rooftop, take in the sunset, and enjoy the city lights as night fell. They figured that as long as they quietly slipped past the barriers, police tape, and warning signs, no one would even notice they were there. The building wasn't tall, so it didn't take long for them to reach the rooftop. As they stepped onto the rooftop, they felt the cool breeze and anticipated the beautiful view awaiting them. But instead of a breathtaking sunset or a sea of city lights, they stumbled upon something that would haunt them forever: a mysterious, mummified body lying right in front of them. The sight was so terrifying that they immediately called the authorities. The fear of getting caught for trespassing didn't even cross their minds at the moment. They were too shocked and scared by what they had discovered. Police arrived quickly and an investigation was launched. The boys were questioned, but since they had fled the scene the moment they saw the body, they couldn't offer much information. The authorities then turned their attention to the body itself. What they found was deeply unsettling: the remains of a man, mummified and lying on his back. There were no visible wounds or signs of trauma, leading investigators to believe that he hadn't died from violence or an accident. The man was fully clothed in a black t-shirt, black trousers, and work boots. Nearby, there was a rucksack with a few half-drunk bottles, suggesting that he might have been there for a while. But there were no identification documents, no ID card, nothing that could tell them who he was. The age of the body was difficult to determine, but the police were confident that he was an adult. They collected the body and began a more detailed examination. As expected, there were no signs of physical distress, either externally or internally, and when they checked his DNA against their database, they came up with nothing. But the police didn't release any public notices or alerts in case someone was missing a relative, which is strange. The investigation concluded that the man had likely died several months to a year before he was discovered, possibly in the winter of 2020, which explained the mummification of his body. This case might sound familiar to some, as it bears a striking resemblance to the Kalideris family case that we covered before, where an entire family was found mummified in their home, with no clear explanation of how or why it happened. Despite extensive investigations, both cases remain unsolved, leaving many questions unanswered. There was also a similar incident in Oakland, California, where a construction worker found a mummified body inside a wall. The circumstances of how the man ended up there remain a mystery, but unlike the Akashi case, the victim's identity in Oakland was eventually determined, thanks to a medical plate found in his body. The key difference in the Akashi Library case is that the identity of the victim remains completely unknown. In the Kalideris case, the victims were identified because they were found in their own home, and in the Oakland case, the medical plate provided a crucial clue. But here, there was nothing. No ID, no distinctive belongings, and no clues to help the investigators figure out who this person was or how he ended up mummified on the rooftop of an abandoned library. The way these three cases were covered in the media also tells an interesting story. The Kalideris case in Indonesia received extensive attention, from local YouTubers making videos about it to national TV stations giving it significant coverage. The Oakland case in the US was similarly well documented, with numerous articles and videos tracking the discovery and eventual identification of the body. But the Akashi Library case, that one barely made a ripple. You'd find only a handful of short articles, brief videos from a few YouTubers, and a sparse entry on a wiki page dedicated to unsolved mysteries. This lack of coverage has led some to wonder if the case was intentionally kept quiet, or perhaps it simply faded into obscurity due to the limited information available about the body and the circumstances surrounding it. Given how well preserved the body was, many people assumed that the authorities would be able to piece together what had happened and solve the case quickly. But that didn't happen. Despite multiple investigations and even autopsies, no one could figure out how the man had died or how his body had become mummified. One of the most popular theories was that the man had died during the previous winter, which was particularly cold, and the freezing temperatures had preserved his body. This explanation seemed logical enough, but left the biggest question unanswered. Who was the mummified man? The public grew increasingly dissatisfied with the investigation. The information released by the police seemed incomplete or contradictory, only deepening the mystery. Now let's delve into some of the theories that have emerged. The most widely accepted theory is that the mysterious man was a homeless individual. With nowhere else to go during the harsh winter, he might have sought refuge in the abandoned library, hoping it would provide some warmth until he could find a better place. The library was easy to break into, with only ropes and signs as barriers, So it's plausible he found his way in and decided to sleep on the rooftop. Unfortunately, he may have frozen to death during the night, unnoticed and unmissed until the 3 high school boys discovered his body. However, this theory has its flaws. For one, the access to the rooftop was blocked by ropes and signs, but nothing that would have prevented him from leaving if he felt cold. This incident occurred right in the middle of an urban center in Japan. The victim could have easily walked into a convenience store, a train station, or any other warm indoor space. Unless he was heavily intoxicated or physically incapacitated, it seems likely he would have sought shelter indoors. The autopsy revealed no injuries or conditions that would have made it difficult for him to move. If he had suffered a heart attack or some other sudden ailment, the presence of half-drunk bottles suggests he had been alive and relatively active before he died. If he had been in distress, why didn't he call for help? The library was abandoned, but the nearby park was popular, often filled with people. Given the rooftop's proximity to the park, someone might have heard him if he had cried out. But no one reported hearing or seeing anything unusual. Another puzzling detail is the man's attire. If he died in winter, why was he only wearing a simple t-shirt and trousers? Even a homeless person would typically have some kind of warm clothing, a jacket or a blanket to survive the cold. This raises doubts about the investigator's conclusion that he froze to death, especially since no coat or blanket was found with him. He didn't seek help or leave the cold, despite being lightly dressed for the harsh weather. It's possible he went up there willingly, intending to die. The view from that spot is beautiful, and perhaps whatever was in the bottles he drank from helped ease his passing as he slowly died of hypothermia. If it was during the winter months, his lack of protective clothing would have hastened the process. He might have had no family to notify, making identification unnecessary. Alternatively, he could have chosen not to bring ID, perhaps to avoid shaming his family, a concept deeply tied to Japanese culture. Perhaps the most intriguing aspect of the case is the absence of any foul smell at the scene. Even though the body was in an abandoned building, the stench of decay should have been noticeable, especially in an open-air location like the rooftop. Such a smell would likely have attracted animals, like crows. But again, the body was well preserved, and there were no reports of anything unusual in the area. These inconsistencies have led the public to question whether there's more to the story than has been revealed. Some speculate that the body didn't end up on the Akashi Library rooftop by accident or natural causes. Someone may have deliberately placed it there. This theory suggests the mummified man could have been moved from another location, with his body left on the rooftop until it was discovered. This could also explain why the body remained intact, as it was protected from animals. This theory has gained traction, with some people speculating about the motives behind such a scenario. Maybe the person responsible took the man's ID to ensure he couldn't be identified. Maybe they scattered his belongings, like the rucksack and half-drunk bottles, to create confusion, leading investigators down the wrong path. These items could have been placed there intentionally to suggest the man was alive for some time before he died. Of course, there's no solid evidence to support this theory, but in the absence of clear clues, every possibility starts to seem plausible, especially since no one has come forward to report a missing person that matches the description of the man found. As of now, the case remains a mystery. It hasn't received much media attention lately, and public interest seems to have faded. Despite the various theories that have surfaced, none of them have been confirmed, leaving the truth about what happened to this man shrouded in uncertainty. So, what do you think? Which theory do you believe is closest to the truth? Or do you have your own interpretation of this mysterious case? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. And that is all for today. Thanks for watching.